And now it's time for
a tiny bite
of knowledge.
Hey, Sarah, I'm planning to have some of my fields made into zones. When I'm looking for somebody to put these zone maps together for me, what should I be looking for?
That is a great question, Jody. And honestly, it goes beyond just making zones. It's really all about trying to work with precision agriculture and finding a good precision agriculture consultant and or precision agriculture program that you can work with and be very confident in the work that is coming out of that program. Successful precision agriculture programs really require three important knowledge bases. First of all, they have to understand software and computer technology, the place where the data is really worked with, where prescriptions can be made. A good precision agriculture consultant also needs to understand the equipment that they're working with. There's a lot of different controllers that are on the market today, and they all kind of take prescriptions a little bit differently. Further, you need to understand the differences between how a planter works and how an air seeder works or how a dry fertilizer spreader works. Understanding that equipment and how it reads variable rate prescriptions is incredibly important. Thirdly, you need to have actual agronomy knowledge. Why are you actually putting a certain rate down? I've seen a lot of people that can make beautiful maps and perhaps they understand how the actual equipment work, but they have no idea why you would need a certain rate of nitrogen in a certain spot of a field. So knowing how all three of those things interact is really important.
Oh my God, that sounds really hard.
And truthfully, there's some very talented people that have places where maybe they've got two of those three characteristics that overlap and good things happen in those scenarios. For example, maybe you've got someone that really understands how the equipment works and maybe the computers work. And, where you've got that intersection, those are the places where you'll see things like auto steer and section control. You don't really have to have that agronomy knowledge to make those things work. Maybe you've got somebody that understands equipment and you've got good agronomy knowledge and their variable rating. For example, I know of a lot of people that might just turn on and shut off a fertilizer application. That technically is a way to variable rate, and they are variable rating. You might also understand agronomy and computers, and you can make some really beautiful prescriptions and zones with that kind of knowledge. But when you only have two of those three, you'll be missing a few things. So even though we can have a lot of great things that happen when we've got two of these three things overlapping each other, you really do need to have all three of these components involved in your precision agriculture program. Because if you don't, you can have some things that don't turn out well. For example, if you do understand equipment and you have a great agronomy background, but you don't necessarily understand software, you might be the guy that's coming forward with non-calibrated yield data, thinking that the person at the software computer side of things can go ahead and clean that data up for you. Sometimes that can happen, but sometimes there just isn't a way to fix it either. So that is one of the challenges. Another example would be where you understand equipment really well and you understand software really well, but you don't understand agronomy. You might end up making zones and prescriptions that really don't make any agronomic sense, and you're applying rates in certain places that don't make sense. And as a matter of fact, I know that this is a real life thing, and farmers have actually paid for prescriptions that they get into the field, and once they're getting applied, they actually turn the prescriptions off because they just don't make any sense with the field. Lastly, if you understand software and you understand agronomy, but you do not understand how the equipment works, you might have the most beautiful prescription that makes the best agronomic sense ever, but you might not understand how to write that prescription to get it into the equipment so that it is actually able to variable rate. That's why you really need to have all three of these components involved. And when all three of the software knowledge, the equipment knowledge, and the agronomy knowledge overlap, you really have the makings of a very successful precision agriculture program.
This really reminds me of the conversation we had with Josh Jutrud a couple of months ago, where he mentions, hey, I'm a farmer and I do a lot of different things. I can't be an expert on everything. I have to know who I can count on and who I can trust to give me answers about certain aspects of equipment, agronomy. So I think in this realm too, in precision agriculture, I think you can be successful in precision ag if you are very good at maybe 2 out of the 3 and have a very trusted source.
I can't be an expert at everything, but I need to ask for some help on some things. And
Yeah.
that's why it's important to have a good precision agriculture consultant to work with.
I think just talking about all these different aspects really gives me a huge appreciation for those folks that are good at what we call precision agriculture, because you're so right. It requires an in-depth knowledge of three kind of disparate things: software and computers, equipment, and agronomy, to really make a good quality product at the end of the day. It takes some really in-depth knowledge.
It really does. And, I've definitely worked with some customers out there of ours that it takes a team to make this all happen as well. For example, I know of some people that are really working on the software side of it and running the computer and the mapping, and they might not be the best agronomist in the world, but they're working in a place where they've got very strong agronomists, and they're probably getting all of the agronomic recommendations from that agronomist and bringing it to life in the map. And then that software person, that GIS specialist, knows how to do that. And they probably also know how to get that prescription written so that it can get into the equipment and actually variable rate. So there are places where it isn't just one person that does this to make it happen, but somehow in that precision agriculture program, that the component of all three of these three aspects are there and they exist.
That's really important. If we call it a program, whether that be a one-person precision ag program or a whole retailer or what have you, it's really important to have that humility to understand what part of, or this three-legged stool, that might not be your complete forte, right? It's so important to have that full team together that has a full understanding of all of these three things, so that when a farmer gets out in the field, they have a prescription that they can rely on that works and also makes sense for that field. Thank you, precision agriculturalists.
So the next time that you have the opportunity to talk to the person who made your zones, made your prescriptions work in your equipment, make sure that you say a big thank you, because there's a lot of background to making all of that work.
Tune in next time
For a tiny bite
of knowledge from GK Technology,
where we have a map
and an app
for that.
Let the geeks at GK Technology help you with your agricultural data. Their agronomists know agriculture. When it comes to creating soils and zone maps to maximize yields in your fields, you can trust the people with decades of experience in site-specific agriculture. Everyone at GK Technology has a background in agriculture, so they know what makes a farm run, and they speak your language. The geeks at GK Technology have a map and an app for that.